This is a story set in a twisted world. Black holes began appearing everywhere, in the skies, in the depths of the oceans, and across the land. From these rifts emerged non-human entities that launched brutal attacks against humanity. As the world plunged into chaos, a new type of being arose, the metahumans. Among them were the immortals, capable of surviving even if their limbs were severed or their organs pierced. The shapeshifters could transform into powerful beasts, bears, wolves, and the like. And the magi were ordinary humans who suddenly awakened extraordinary powers. Thanks to the efforts of the metahumans who held off the invaders, peace was gradually restored. People began referring to the year the portals first appeared as the Terrible Year. After the crisis, public opinion turned against the metahumans. Many believed they carried dangerous genetic material, making confinement necessary. Fear and distrust created a chasm between ordinary humans and their enhanced brethren. The immortals integrated into government, the shapeshifters allied themselves with a global corporation, and the magi formed a secret society, using magic to remain hidden. 20 years have passed since the Terrible Year. Even today, some metahumans still live secretly among ordinary people. We see our main character in a supermarket with his father. The father calls him over and reveals something shocking. The boy is an immortal. He stands there stunned. The father explains that since he's immortal, his blood has likely been passed on. The son asks why he's being told this right now, of all moments while they're buying scallions. The father insists it must remain a secret, even from his own wife. He assures him he's speaking quietly, so it'll be okay. The son remains confused, joking that immortals usually have beautiful skin and are very handsome. The father admits that the son didn't inherit much of his looks, but he's still an immortal. His awakening is scheduled for his 24th birthday, probably tonight at 11 p.m. Shaken. The boy reacts to how calm his father sounds, but the father changes the subject and reminds him they still need to buy garlic. The son insists they shouldn't grab the minced garlic, since his mother prefers to prepare it herself. The father agrees. Then, the father emphasizes once more not to tell the mother, who doesn't know his true identity. If she found out, it could lead to divorce. The son asks to talk about it outside. A man at the register seemed amused by their conversation, so the son suggests they step out. Outside, the father comments that his son is surprisingly strong, unusual for an immortal. He wonders if it comes from exercising regularly. The boy laughs and says he hardly ever works out. Then he reveals another secret. His strength probably comes from a different secret he's kept even longer. His mother is a shapeshifter. Eventually, they head home. The boy's mother is waiting and brightens at their arrival. She asks about the garlic, and the husband confirms he bought the right kind. She checks to see if it's minced, and he reassures her it isn't. Happy, she kisses him. Watching, the son interrupts, "Your son is right here." A flashback to 2 years earlier shows the boy asking his mother if she could transform into Sailor's son. She confirms she can, and even says she can do the devil tail. He realizes she wasn't joking when she said she was a shapeshifter. She reveals that he is one too. Shapeshifters awaken at 18, and she thought his awakening would happen that very night. She then asks him to keep it a secret from his father. Back in the present, the parents ask what gift he wants. He says he doesn't want anything. The mother insists, warning he might regret it. He replies that he's already grateful, simply for being given life. The parents laugh, and the mother praises his sweet way of speaking, saying he sounds like his father. The father says their son's good character comes from his mother. They agree he's got a bit of both of them. Watching them, the boy feels happy, thinking how special his parents are, an immortal father and a shapeshifter mother. But he also wonders why they hide their identities from each other. Later that night, he says goodnight to his parents. They return the favor and he goes to his room. Lying comfortably in bed, he checks the time. It's almost 11 p.m. The hour when, according to his father, his immortal powers will awaken. He remembers the conversation on the way home and wonders if the awakening hurts. His father had said it felt like blood heating up and then cooling, and that the senses sharpened. The son asked again if it hurt, and his father assured him it did not. But the boy recalls his own awakening as a shapeshifter, and it felt like he was dying. He then wonders if he will actually awaken, since his mother is just a human. His father had said immortal blood is stronger. When he tried to ask more, he gave up, thinking it didn't matter. Back in the present, lying in bed, he wonders if it's possible to awaken as an immortal when he's already a shapeshifter. He worries about what he'll say to his father if he doesn't awaken. He decides not to think too much and tries to sleep. Soon, he rises from the bed, trembling, and deeply disturbed in his mind, he recalls what the world once was. No invaders, no black holes, no one knew of metahumans or immortals. It was a normal world, but his life was becoming something abnormal. When a sudden, intense pain hits him, he thinks of his father and remembers what he said, that the awakening didn't hurt. But for him, it was different. The pain was real. 2 years ago, the main character was shirtless, marveling at the power coursing through his body. He was amazed at how much the awakening alone had transformed his muscles. In that moment, his mother entered the room and startled him. Embarrassed, he covered himself quickly and scolded her for not knocking. She laughed gently, saying she only came to check on him, and commented on how handsome he'd become. She asked him what it was like being a shapeshifter now. He admitted that he felt more energetic, with sharpened senses, like hearing and smell, but that he was upset. He asked why she had never warned him about the awakening's pain, losing all his hair, vomiting blood over and over, feeling his muscles tear. His mother replied calmly that warning him wouldn't have made a difference. Still, he said he would at least have been mentally prepared. He confirmed with her whether the awakening was truly complete and if there were no more stages. She reassured him there weren't. This wasn't a game. Relieved, he said he never wanted to go through that kind of pain again. Back in the present, Wang reflected on the agony he had endured that night. The next morning, he pinched his cheeks and looked in the mirror. Although he was now an immortal, the pain still lingered. His appearance hadn't changed much, but his senses were keener, especially his night vision. Suddenly, a deafening sound came from outside his room and made his head spin. He realized his hearing had become extremely sensitive. Trying to calm himself, he remembered how he had controlled his body during the transformation for days, focusing his thoughts to block out the noise, and the sound gradually faded. He felt more in control and finally accepted that he had awakened as an immortal. Still, he wondered if he could keep these changes hidden. His mother called him to breakfast. He replied and joined them at the table. Surprised by the bounty laid out, he felt lucky. His mother offered to make more if necessary. Wang observed how much his family ate, recalling that shapeshifters needed extra energy. But his father was eating plenty too. He wondered whether special types naturally had bigger appetites. His father commented that the food was a bit light and asked if everything was okay. His mother explained that more rice was still cooking. Wang noticed that, despite everything, his parents never seemed suspicious of each other or fought. Then his father told him to prepare for the civil service exams. Wang was taken aback. His mother questioned the sudden decision and insisted he should go to college since he was 20. His father argued that skills mattered more than a degree and that a civil service position was respectable. He himself was a public servant. Though not opposed, his mother worried that Wang would end up stuck in some small, cramped Gashuan town too soon. His father reassured her that it wasn't necessary to worry. Wang was intelligent. Wang watched this rare disagreement between his parents. He guessed his father wanted him in government roles, common for immortals, while his mother likely had another plan. A memory surfaced. Training with his mother at the gym, he'd improved drastically, doing 15 pull-ups without breaking a sweat. His mother explained that shapeshifters had 3 times the strength of a normal person, but that came as much from regular training as instinct. She added that shapeshifters were also stronger by instinct, even if he hadn't felt it then. She warned that there would be times when those instincts would take over in the real world. She emphasized the importance of training to control those impulses and expressed her wish that he go to college and join a company. She revealed that his grandfather had connections in an industry that worked with shapeshifters and that college would give him a basic professional foundation as a shapeshifter. In the present, his mother suggested they ask Wang what he wanted instead of deciding for him. Wang fell silent, growing anxious. His father turned to him and asked what he wanted to do. Wang realized he'd never shared his true desire. He answered that he wanted to join Yugi. Both parents were stunned. His mother grew angry, wondering why he would choose a conventional military path with the abilities he had. His father remained thoughtful and silent. Controlling her frustration, his mother said Wang hadn't thought it through, but he insisted that at 20, he could make his own decisions. Now furious but trying to stay calm, his mother said he must be crazy. Seeing this, his father intervened, saying there was nothing wrong with being a soldier. His mother was shocked and asked if Wang was choosing it for the uniform. Wang admitted that appearance was part of the reason. His father supported him, saying it made sense. No 20-year-old was truly ready to fight for their country. His mother still worried about the dangers of military life, but his father reassured her that not every soldier ended up in dangerous posts like Somalia after training. Mission and assignment. The young man could still have a good life. After all, he would have to serve in the army eventually, so going in as an officer would be better. Reluctantly, his mother agreed. As they ate, Wang admired how persuasive his father was. He asked his mother if this was really possible. She said yes, but not yet. His father concurred, emphasizing that college, or rather the civil service exam, came first. Huan joked, asking if his father was sponsored by a prep school. His father continued, saying that passing the exam would let him postpone entering the army, and that if he didn't go, he could work in the defense industry. Being an officer could even be a bonus. Wang asked if that was truly possible. His father confidently said yes. Wang thought it might be, especially with his father's support. Determined to take the exam, Wang noted it wouldn't be easy, but it wasn't impossible either. His father instructed him to keep his weekends free and mentioned someone in Hung Bayangi who would give him intensive classes. Wang agreed, but was surprised by the location. In the next scene, Wang was seen traveling by bus. He thought of someone he knew in home, a farm worker who refused to move to the city. Wang wondered how skilled this tutor must be for him to travel all the way there. Looking at his phone, Wang reflected that he'd never imagined taking the civil service exam. His true goal was still Yugi. He admitted to himself he'd never wanted to be a soldier. His dream was something greater, tied to Earth's white hole. After the formation of the International Coalition of Governments, a portal was opened. While black holes served as exits, white holes were entrances, portals to the invaders' world called the Other Side. That world was rich in unknown metals, plants, animals, and new resources. Though Earth's black holes were a thing of the past, the resource war continued, and shapeshifters were sent to the front lines because of their strength and abilities. His mother had never wanted him in those battles, so by committing to become a soldier, he could fulfill both her wish and his own. Elsewhere, a young man answered a call. He assured the person on the line, named Sunbei, that he'd received their son and understood his mission. The exams were mentioned, and the caller was reassured. The young man declared firmly that he wouldn't go easy on him, even though he was Sunbei's son. He was determined to train him well. The man's face was still not fully revealed. Wang and the mysterious young man stood face to face. The man looked at Wang and asked what he was. In reply, Wang calmly introduced himself as Yu Wang, son of Yu Yanho, but the man clarified he didn't want his name. He wanted to know how Wang, an immortal, could have such a powerful physique. Wang explained it was probably due to his mixed blood. The man found that odd, since immortals had dense blood, especially someone with a father like Yanho. Mixing that with human blood should be impossible, but Wang revealed that his mother's blood was dense too, which surprised the man and made him think Wang truly was unique. Later on, the man told Wang to follow him. When Wang asked where they were going, the man reminded him that he had come for lessons. Aware of this, Wang followed without hesitation. As they walked, he silently reflected that the place he had arrived at, sent by his father to prepare for the civil service exam, was in the countryside, on a mountain near Hoysum in Ganggi province. The man guiding him appeared to be his tutor. Observing him, Wang thought that his clean, handsome face might mean he was also an immortal. He asked if there was a temple nearby, but the man dismissed the idea. Confused, Wang wondered why they were heading up the mountain. Eventually, the man led him into a forest, to an old wooden house, surrounded by logs and dozens of knives stuck blade up in the ground. The man ordered Wang to follow him. Seeing that bizarre setup, Wang wondered exactly what his father wanted him to learn. Shortly thereafter, holding a staff, the man asked whether Wang had awakened. Wang confirmed that he had. The man then asked if he had tested it. Wang recounted that he had tried slicing his wrist with a utility knife. There was a wound, but it healed quickly. The man then asked whether Wang understood the principle behind wound healing. Wang admitted that he did not. The man confessed that he didn't know either. Perplexed, Wang listened as the man continued, drawing a diagram in the dirt with his staff. He explained that, even without grasping deeper mechanisms, they could understand the basics of healing. First, health. A healthy immortal had strong regenerative power. Second, sensitivity. Greater sensitivity meant more pain, but also quicker detection and better bodily control. Sensing wounds promptly helped address them. Overall, training health and sensitivity enhanced healing abilities. Wang nodded in recognition, though he didn't understand the drawing. The man then asked if Wang had any questions. Wang raised one. He didn't see why he needed to run through a field full of knives. The man explained that it was part of the training to strengthen health and teach control of the immortal body. Wang protested, saying it made no sense. Irritated, the man asked why he talked so much and reminded him that he wanted to take the exam. Wang confirmed this, then asked aloud when the lessons would begin. The man replied that this was the lesson. Wang retorted that lessons normally involved pen and paper. On a scrap of paper, the man clarified that Wang was applying to the Immortal Special Forces, which left Wang completely stunned. He had only heard it was a civil service exam. The man explained that it was akin to joining the army. Confused and overwhelmed, Wang wondered why his father had never mentioned the UDT. Then the man challenged him. Either you do it or you quit. Wang realized that he could only live life on his own terms if he passed, and so he agreed to continue. At that moment, the man handed him a pair of trousers and told him to change and remove his shoes, in case he didn't want to ruin his clothes. Wang put on the trousers and reflected that deep down, nothing had changed. Only the exam wasn't what he expected. The man positioned Wang before the knives embedded in the ground and shouted for him to run. Wang hesitated but took a step forward. As he ran, his feet were cut, causing immense pain and bleeding. He screamed while the man calmly sipped his tea. Exhausted, Wang paused for a moment, but the man shouted that he must not rest. An enemy would not stop chasing him. Wang pressed on, screaming in pain. Eventually, the agony became unbearable, and he begged the man to simply kill him. His feet were soaked in blood, covered with deep gashes. From these wounds, a strange aura began to emerge. The man noticed and commented that Wang had good reflexes, having evaded some blades that others could not. He then praised Wang's regenerative ability, noting that the healing speed increased with each injury. He ordered Wang to stop dodging the blades and to step on them more forcefully, even enough to cut into his legs. Furious, Wang cursed the man in his mind. The man told him to stop dramatizing and keep running. Wang resumed, leaving the man curious about what kind of person he was. Soon, Wang collapsed to the ground, too weak to continue. The man reminded him that he was immortal and could not die from this. He needed to get up and run again. Frustrated, Wang asked how much longer he would have to endure it. The man explained that the blades were meant to prepare him for the shock of battle, fear, or concussions, but he was puzzled that Wang still hadn't felt any shock. When asked if it hurt, Wang screamed that it hurt terribly. Reflecting on himself, he realized that before becoming an immortal, he had been a shapeshifter, and shapeshifters had extremely resilient bodies. So something like this shouldn't cause shock, no matter how long it lasted. He asked if there was another way to pass the training. The man asked how fast he could run 50 meters. Wang answered about 6 seconds. The man said that if he could cross the blade field in that time, he would pass the training. Wang got up and confirmed the time. The man agreed. Determined, Wang warned him not to go back on his word. In his thoughts, he recognized that he could run 50 meters in 6 seconds at a moderate pace, but if he blocked out the pain and sprinted, it would be easy. He shot across the field, overcoming the pain. The man looked visibly surprised at his speed. Wang completed the run and mentally confirmed that he had made the time. He relaxed, relieved. The man laughed as he watched him, finding Wang interesting interesting. Suddenly, the man shouted for him to run again. Wang asked why. The man casually admitted he hadn't even timed the run. Wang was furious. After a while, the man announced they would begin the second training. He handed Wang a dog collar. Wang, holding it, asked what it was for. The man said it was needed for the next phase, endurance against asphyxiation. Wang was horrified, trembling as he realized what it meant. The man confirmed that when activated, the collar would strangle him. Wang hadn't even put the collar on correctly when the man reprimanded him, ordering him to tie it properly. The man reminded him that after surviving the blade field, he couldn't quit now. Wang begged to train underwater instead to hold his breath, but the man dismissed the idea. This training was about withstanding strangulation. If one blacked out in battle, one could die. The man explained that, just like the blade training, this would help prevent fainting. After a brutal war against special species, humans had learned to fight them, and immortals also needed to learn. He mentioned that in the past, they trained by hanging from trees, saying the world had improved. Wang silently disagreed, thinking it was no improvement at all. He asked what the criteria were for passing. The man said there were none. He would faint, but needed to endure for at least 5 minutes. Wang prepared himself and put on the collar, agreeing to the time. The man warned him not to try to rip the collar off or grab the remote, unless he wanted a hole in his chest. Wang understood. The man then asked if he was ready. Wang said he was. With that, the man pressed the button. Wang struggled to breathe, barely able to stay conscious as he fought to endure the crushing pain. The agony became so intense that he instinctively brought his hands to his throat to try to remove the collar. But before he could, the man ordered him to stop. Then he began beating him with his staff, watching coldly as Wang's condition deteriorated. The man remarked that if Wang couldn't endure, he ought to pass out soon. In great distress, Wang cursed inwardly, wondering when the ordeal would finally end. He was sure more than 5 minutes had gone by and felt his consciousness fading. Just as he was about to black out, the collar automatically deactivated. Surprised, the man looked at the button and wondered why the device had switched off. Suspecting the battery had died, he watched the collar slip from Wang's neck and fall to the ground. Wang gasped, feeling as though he'd escaped death. The man, however, reassured him that he would not die. Frustrated, Wang protested, insisting they wouldn't repeat the session just because he hadn't fainted. He was confident that more than 5 minutes had passed. The man confirmed it, exactly 12 minutes and 47 seconds. He recalled that the previous record was only 8 minutes, and thought to himself that something or someone must have been at fault. Meanwhile, the man looked at the young man and smiled, telling him not to stare at him like a child discovering a new toy. Later, the man informed Wang that training for the day was over and that he needed to eat. Wang sarcastically asked if the man would feed him. The man explained that working while hungry was inefficient and that staying healthy was essential. When Wang offered to help, the man told him simply to sit. Admitting to himself that he didn't know how to cook, Wang remained still. Soon, the man prepared a strange soup and served it to Wang, telling him to eat. Wang felt immediately unsettled by its appearance and asked what was in it. When the man offered an explanation, Wang quickly refused, saying he didn't want to know. In the next scene, Wang was bathing in a river, reflecting on the day's events. He decided that next time he would be the one cooking. He thought of learning from his mother when he got home, but before that, he needed to ask his father some questions. He wanted to call him immediately, but fatigue overtook him. Feeling exhausted, he muttered that he needed a good night's sleep. Back in his room, Wang noted that everything was completely dark. Calling for his teacher, he asked about the lack of lights. The man explained that lights attract insects and that the darkness wasn't really uncomfortable. Wang accepted the explanation, but still seemed a bit uneasy. He lay down in silence and tried to sleep. The man explained that this training was designed to kill the sense of touch, because a keen sense would make discomfort even worse. At first, it might even keep someone awake, but despite that, Wang soon fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, the tutor awoke him for breakfast. Once again, the man had prepared bird food, and Wang, though perturbed, forced himself to say thanks. The tutor reminded him that immortals burn a lot of energy and need to eat properly. Wang agreed and began to eat. Curious about the day's training, he asked what they would do. The man said it would be cliff jumping. Wang sighed, realizing it would be another insane challenge. The tutor explained that the goal was to learn how to hold one's breath in midair and control one's senses before impact. Wang deduced that the greatest threat to an immortal in battle was the shock and pressure of a hard landing, which could render them unconscious. The tutor agreed and added that losing mobility in the legs was dangerous, so the arms serve as shields. He lamented that attacks aimed at the head or legs were especially perilous, noted that knives were more dangerous than firearms, and that claymores and mines were also threats. Wang understood, although he found the examples outdated. As Wang toyed with his food, the tutor scolded him to hurry up and start training. Wang complied and resumed eating. The following scene showed Wang leaping off a high cliff, completing his exercise. Afterwards, he took a bus home. The next day, on the bus, Wang called his father and asked if the place where he was training was really the right one. His father, curious, asked why, and Wang told him that he'd been forced to jump off a mountain. His father, unsurprised, reminded him that as an immortal, he wouldn't die easily, and explained that pushing the body to its limits was how one discovered true potential. Wang reflected, realizing that all he'd learned so far was just how durable his body was. Praising him, his father told him to rest well. Wang then asked about the exam he would take, but before his father could answer, the call was abruptly cut off, revealing that the tutor's name was Xian Bei. Still anxious after the call, Wang tried to stay positive. He told himself that nothing would change, even if he learned it now. He planned to follow his father's advice and rest the next day. When he arrived home, he expected to take a hot shower, do 5 pounds on the scale, eat a delicious meal prepared by his mother, and sleep 12 uninterrupted hours in a mosquito-free room. It was his perfect rest plan. However, upon arrival, his mother told him to shower later because she wanted to take him somewhere. This sudden change frustrated Wang, as all his rest plans collapsed instantly. She reminded him that he should still be studying for university and revealed that she had packed his bag. Surprised, Wang insisted he could study on his own until he realized she'd said the bag was ready. His mother then informed him that she'd found a tutor nearby and that he would stay there with the tutor for 2 nights. Now overwhelmed, Wang realized something was wrong. In the next scene, his mother left and was about to depart. Wang asked why she wouldn't introduce him since they should meet the tutor, but she brushed off his concern, saying that intelligence alone wasn't enough. He also needed a strong body. With that, she left him standing there, incredulous. Wang understood the truth. What lay ahead would not be peaceful. University studies, bitter laughter, he accepted it. That, he knew, was the nature of his Dan family. Wang took the elevator up to a new floor and was astonished to discover a fully equipped gym there. He stood in shock, wondering if they'd really converted an underground parking garage into this space. At that moment, a girl entered and immediately recognized him as Suhi's son. Her sudden appearance left Wang even more confused. He confirmed his identity, admitting that he had no idea why his mother had sent him here. The girl mentioned that he'd been studying non-stop for 2 days, warning that using only one's mind without physical activity would harm the body. Wang, unsure how to respond, kept his thoughts to himself, feeling it unfair that he couldn't speak the truth here either. He recalled how his mother had raised him with a strict philosophy. If he disobeyed, she would discipline him physically. She believed that people must take full responsibility for their own mistakes. After living under those values for 20 years, he had internalized them. Rebelling against his mother always brought severe consequences. Back in the present, he accepted his fate, realizing that resistance would not work, not with this tutor either. The girl handed him a smartwatch, instructing him to wear it on his wrist and ankle. Hesitant, he admitted he had trauma about receiving such devices. She explained calmly that it was only to measure his body dimensions. He complied and strapped them on, asking if she was going to train him. She replied that first there would be a test, pointing at a treadmill and telling him to start running. As he ran, she noted that he never trained on his own and called him lazy. Though his heart rate looked good and his body strong, she asked if that was all he could do. Her remarks irritated Wang, who felt humiliated and realized how lazy she thought he was, blaming modern comforts. He wondered if they were about the same age, then remembered that immortals and shapeshifters age slowly, so she could be older than she appeared. He asked how long he should keep running, but she simply ordered him to continue. Wang was shocked. She explained that cardio was the first step, promising to rebuild his body from scratch. He replied curtly that he didn't want a second mother. The girl smirked, suggested it was because he was Suhei's son, and accused him of joking around. Internally, Wang thought this was no joke. Even after he collapsed, he was still running. The girl taunted him, saying that even her grandmother wouldn't tire after such light work. Exhausted, Wang announced the time: 14 hours, 4 minutes, and 30 seconds. He couldn't believe he had run through the night without a break, noting that even immortal training included rest. The girl criticized his dependence on his natural body, saying fighting without training was amateurish. She told him to watch and memorize the stretching routine they would do afterward. Wang was stunned by her flexibility. She stressed its importance, warning that stiffness was a weakness. Out of breath, Wang thought that flexibility might indeed be an issue, but he had no energy to question further. Even with a shapeshifter's body, 14 hours of running had drained him. Nonetheless, he kept going and updated the time again: 14 hours, 10 minutes. He reminded himself to keep track of time, memorize the video's movements, and pay attention to her explanations. Though brutal, he believed he could endure the training. He recalled a lesson from his senior Xian, who had taught him to manage his senses. The senior explained that while Wang was good at blocking sensations, dampening them too much could hinder his movements. He needed to learn to suppress one sense while sharpening another, an advanced form of multitasking. With this in mind, Wang pushed himself harder. He ran, memorized the video, listened to the instructor, and kept time all at once as though juggling 4 separate tasks. He realized they didn't fully overlap. Running was physical. Video and instruction were separate, and timekeeping could be set aside momentarily. Using this strategy, he managed to endure 24 hours of continuous running. Finally, Wang stopped, gasping for air. He sighed in relief, thinking it was over. The girl checked her watch and saw he had finished in exactly 24 hours and 1 second. She congratulated him on his mental performance, then told him to relax and prepare for flexibility training. He simply replied, "Okay." She asked if he remembered the video and demonstrated the stretching positions. Wang watched her in awe, amazed by her suppleness. To him, it seemed like cheating to move that way with a human body. She told him to try. He agreed. He began to stretch, but couldn't perform the moves correctly. She warned him not to overdo it and explained that flexibility takes time. By repeating the same movements daily, one's range would gradually increase. She described it as slowly tearing the muscles to gain flexibility. Wang realized that with his immortal healing ability, he didn't need to go slowly. He just just had to endure the pain. With that thought, he suddenly forced himself into the stretches aggressively. The girl was shocked to see him pushing his body, which quickly became stiff and sore. She rushed over to check on him. He trembled, but insisted he was fine. She scolded him for disobedience and asked who had taught him to act that way, given his condition. Wang pointed out that he had succeeded. Surprised, the girl called him an interesting guy. A moment later, Wang asked for help getting up, and although she didn't want to, she had no choice but to assist him. The next scene opens on a large pig roasting. The girl tells Wang that the day's training is over and it's time to eat. Wang, astonished, asks if they're really going to eat a whole pig. She confidently replies that one pig is for her and points to a second one, saying that one is for him. Looking at the enormous roast, Wang wonders how it makes sense to have an entire pig per person. His trainer, wearing gloves, interjects that eating is also part of their training. She reminds them to get used to consuming enough energy to keep moving. Later, Wang can't believe it and compares it to a bear's hibernation period. Both begin to eat, and the trainer tells Wang not to leave any scraps, but to pile everything up, since 2 days a week aren't enough to learn even the basics. Wang agrees as he devours the meat, internally noting how incredible it tastes, perhaps because he hadn't eaten all day. It was simply seasoned roast pork, but to him, it felt like a feast. The trainer firmly instructs them to finish every last bite or face death. Wang responds that he was raised never to waste food. After they finish, the trainer leaves, telling Wang to wash up and sleep after the meal. Wang follows the instruction, cleans everything, and then sits in silence. He reflects that this is much better than sleeping in a mosquito-infested forest. Also, unlike his tutor, who uses a staff, he can use his cell phone. He wonders whether he should call his mother. He dials her number, and she answers with concern, asking if he's okay. Wang is surprised. He didn't expect her to worry after sending him the gear. He tells her he's definitely not okay. His mother replies that she had already warned the trainer several times not to go easy on him, but she still worries. Wang, confused, listens as she continues advising him to tell the trainer to be harsher if the sessions aren't tough enough. She then adds that his father is there too, and that she's busy at the moment. Shocked, Wang questions her priorities, asking what happened to her concern for her son. On the second day of training, Wang reflects on the differences between the two systems. If the immortal regimen feels like psychotic torture, mutant training is built on brute intensity. The trainer challenges Wang with heavy dumbbells. He struggles, threatening to kill her, but she pushes him to keep going. She asks how much he can lift and what his personal records are. She explains that knowing and breaking one's limits is the foundation of her program, which integrates science with electronic devices and tools. The immortal training had also involved equipment that nearly strangled him. She then lifts a weight herself and tells him to match it. Wang realized the total weight was 60 kilograms, 20 kilos on each side plus the bar. Confident in his mutant strength, which was 3 times that of a normal adult, he lifted it easily. She instructed him to carry it and follow her while running, ordering him to keep pace. Confused, Wang asked if she really wanted him to run while holding the weight. Then he noticed a narrow cardboard track ahead and realized this was another wild challenge, like the blade course earlier. She told him to focus on balance, keep his center aligned, and trust his reflexes. When Wang asked if it actually worked, she simply said to keep doing it until it did. Looking at the narrow path, he saw it was barely half the width of his foot and stretched a long way. He wondered if it was safe to fall. The trainer checked something on her tablet and mentioned casually that the risk of injury from a 3-meter fall was low. However, she reminded him not to anticipate the fall. Mutants don't recover as easily as immortals, so preserving the body is the priority. Curious, Wang wondered what she was watching, perhaps his performance data. She then emphasized again that injuries are a serious disadvantage on the battlefield. He decided to face the challenge anyway. The trainer, who had been watching Netflix behind him, had advised him to protect his body, but as an immortal trainee, he knew he would heal quickly, even from broken bones, so he prepared himself, ready to fall if necessary. When he placed his foot on the narrow plank, he instinctively hesitated. His enhanced senses activated, especially his heightened touch, which helped him feel the pressure through his shoe and stabilize. Although mutants generally have great reflexes, they can't match an immortal's sensory precision. He found his balance, gained confidence, and even enjoyed the task, appreciating that at least this course had no blades. He crossed successfully. The trainer immediately ordered him to do it 2 more times, back and forth. Wang agreed. She noted to herself that the plank was only 4 centimeters wide and 50 centimeters long, and he hadn't wobbled once. Wang looked ahead and saw something even more intense, a wire. He realized the next level was even harder. He asked if he really had to run across it. She confirmed that he did, that this was the true test, called the single line setup. The wooden plank had only been preparation. Despite appearances, she admitted he had excellent balance. Seeing a crash pad below the wire, Wang questioned its purpose. She explained that it wouldn't cushion his fall much, so if he slipped, he needed to fall straight. Grabbing the wire would only tear his skin. When he asked if he'd have to carry weights again, she told him to start with just his body. Wang accepted, thinking that once he mastered this, the real challenge would be carrying the bar. He wasn't afraid. Compared to immortal training, this was light work, though in complexity it was hellish. Still, the wire didn't sway much, there was no windstorm, and the fall wasn't fatal. There was even a crash pad. Nothing about this scenario truly frightened him, so he took a deep breath and stepped forward. He started slowly but soon picked picked up speed. At first, he struggled to keep his balance, nearly falling. He considered slowing down, but then found a rhythm, light, springy steps. Watching him, the trainer smiled, entertained. The next morning arrived, and it was time to go home. As he left, the trainer told him she would see him next week. He agreed. In the car, his mother drove him home and commented on the training, asking if he wondered why she was doing all this. He said, "Of course." She explained that she couldn't stand seeing him beaten up. Wang was confused, but she continued, saying he needed to learn to use his body properly, that right now he was far too weak. Shocked, Wang thought that if his friends heard this, they'd faint. His nickname at gel school was One Punch Man. Accepting the challenge, he decided to train harder. If he ended up joining the UDT, he wanted to be useful, not a burden. Though the Immortal Special Forces the staff instructor mentioned sounded intimidating, he still believed he could make it. When he got home, he ate a huge meal and thanked his mother. She teased him, asking if he'd been starving for days. Touched, he told her he'd realized how special her cooking was. Then he said he wanted to learn to cook himself. Surprised, she asked if he was serious. He explained that cooking was fashionable for men now, and he wanted to impress his future wife. She found the idea amusing, but reminded him he still needed to keep in shape to fit his current physique. He might end up a fat chef. Wang laughed and told her to stop worrying about his figure and improve her diet, but he insisted on learning to cook first. He remembered a dish a nutritionist had made that had made the staff instructor's eyes light up. His mother finally agreed to teach him, and he lit up with excitement. The food problem was solved, but as for training, that was another story. He wondered what training next week would hold. Would it be the same or something even tougher? The scene cut to Xian Bei meticulously cleaning and sharpening his blades, smiling menacingly, hinting at what was to come. Wang was shown falling again, his body bloodied, recalling how, after a 4-day break, the staff instructor had declared that the earlier training was only the basic phase, separate from the true entry requirements. From now on, the blade course, asphyxiation endurance, and cliff diving would be mandatory. Wang had completed his final course by throwing himself off a cliff. Despite the pain, he'd found that course easier than the wild mutant training because it ended more quickly. However, the worrying part was that it was only the beginning of basic training. In that moment, Xian Bei called him over, asking if he wanted to advance now that he'd finished. He explained that one of immortality's benefits was regeneration. Being shot by a bullet wasn't a big problem. The bullet either passed through or was expelled, and the body would regenerate, but non-firearm weapons like blades were more problematic. Amputated limbs took longer to heal. That's why caution was important. Wang understood and replied accordingly. The man elaborated, explaining that while it was acceptable to suffer damage in less critical areas, certain attacks had to be completely avoided. Watching Xian Bei, Wang felt a slight intimidation, thinking to himself that Xian Bei handled the blade like an assassin. Nervous, Wang tried to confirm why he'd drawn the blade, only for Xian to challenge him to figure it out himself. Wang realized this was a continuation of the blade course. The goal wasn't just to avoid the blade, but to learn to deflect or absorb the blow properly. In the next sequence, Xian Bei attacked Wang again. Wang managed to dodge the first and second strikes, and even back away during the third. Xian explained that the goal was to avoid serious injury while accepting minor wounds. There was no point in dodging everything. Seeing that Wang was athletic, he decided to start easy. Wang was confused. How could he fail to avoid the attacks? Before he could understand, Xian slashed his chest, leaving a deep cut. He then explained that if he were to target Wang's thigh or calf, Wang should block with his shin or deflect the blow. With that, he inflicted more cuts on Wang's leg and hand. The pain was intense, and Wang thought it felt exactly like being struck by a blade, no matter what else it could have been. Fortunately, the earlier blade course was helping. Every cut began to heal rapidly. Surprised, Wang watched his quick regeneration unfold. The man acknowledged his fast healing, and he continued the assault until Wang collapsed from his wounds. Blood poured from his body, but his injuries slowly began to heal. Xian Bei pointed out that anemia was a weakness of immortality. When Wang asked if they carried blood packs for transfusions, Xian Bei confirmed, saying it was better to stop the bleeding in advance. Wang was surprised to learn they actually did that. Xian Bei suggested a break to eat, and Wang offered to cook. When asked if it would be instant ramen, he refused, and instead prepared a dish using his mother's recipe, his own beef bolognese spaghetti. His mother had once written in a note that adding plenty of sauce made food more flavorful. Xian tasted the dish and smiled, saying it was good. Wang joked that at least Xian's palate was functioning normally. When the man asked for clarification, Wang explained that immortals had heightened senses, so it was reassuring that Xian could still enjoy the food. Xian mentioned that cooking was also a form of training. Surprised, Wang asked if that really counted as training. Xian clarified that it helped dull the sense of taste. As they finished eating, Xian suddenly announced he would add one more training stage. Wang, confused, asked what he meant. Xian explained that since Wang was used to blade strikes to his arms, it was time to advance. Without warning, he plunged a knife into Wang's abdomen, initiating organ regeneration training. The sudden blow left Wang stunned and in pain. Slowly, his organs began to heal. Xian Bei advised him to hang on, since organ regeneration took longer, and that he'd need strength training in the meantime. Trembling with pain, Wang realized there had been no warning before the attack. He asked how Xian had managed that. Xian Bei explained it was about hiding one's energy to avoid detection by sensitive opponents. Before he could elaborate, Wang shouted angrily that he should have at least been warned. Xianbei remarked casually that Wang could hear him coming and noted that he was almost healed. Wang asked if the strike had been just to trigger regeneration, and Xianbei confirmed, then asked if he wanted to learn to conceal his energy. Still recovering, Wang agreed. 2 days later, Wang arrived at the gym for another round. He greeted his trainer, a woman who immediately pointed a gun at him. Wang asked if this was some sort of survival game. She replied that it was something similar and fired a shot that whizzed past him. Wang was terrified. She explained that the gun was modified with gas and special rounds and instructed him to dodge. Wang began to run as she continued shooting. She shouted that firearms were dangerous and could cause severe damage. He needed to move while she aimed, find cover, or run fast enough to thwart a precise shot. As Wang ran, she told him not to sprint in a straight line but in zigzags to make his movement unpredictable. If caught in a recoil situation, he should brace his muscles and change direction using body tension. Some rounds whizzed near Wang's arm, causing intense pain. The trainer emphasized that even a single hit could leave him helpless. If he had to take a hit, it must be to a non-critical area while he kept training. During the drill, Wang realized that both immortals and shapeshifters had survival-based fighting styles suited to their traits. Mather, the trainer, taught not just how to fight, but how to survive. Immortals had to beware of heavy weapons, shotguns being more dangerous than rifles, while shapeshifters could handle blades thanks to their speed and reflexes. Those shotguns became useless at close range. They relied on complete avoidance of injury since they couldn't regenerate. After the intense session, the range was littered with shell casings and debris. The trainer declared the session over. Wang asked how they planned to clean up, and she instructed him to climb up and run the wire again. Wang reluctantly agreed, chalking his hands. He thought the physical training was still preferable to repeatedly injuring himself. Suddenly, he sensed something strange, like a lethal attack approaching from behind. He dodged instantly and turned to see the trainer there looking surprised. She commented that he had felt it. Wang was stunned as she unleashed her terrifying aura. With a voice full of shock, he reacted to the intense sensation that had just passed through him. The trainer calmly explained that what he just felt was known as the savage thirst for blood and acknowledged that Wang had been able to perceive it. Still shaken, Wang warned her not to do it again. He felt as if his heart would burst and clearly disliked the sensation. The trainer reassured him that it would become manageable over time. Once someone got used to it or had something similar within, they found it easier. She instructed him to keep training. Wang, still surprised, reflected on the survival training ahead. Shapeshifter survival training had begun. Strangely, in 2 days, he had stopped blacking out while running the cardboard path. He'd learned to endure the trainer's overwhelming presence of bloodlust. Thanks to his immortal level senses, he learned to perceive the bloodthirst with all 5 senses, then counterattack with his 6th. He discovered that by flexing his lower abdomen and holding his breath, the sensation became bearable. With this new control, Wang resumed walking the narrow cardboard path while carrying dumbbells. This time, he moved steadily, never losing his balance. Observing his progress, the trainer was visibly surprised. She acknowledged that, beyond organ regeneration, he'd been trained with axes, spears, and arrows, and even traps, especially since traps required extra caution. In the scenes that followed, Wang continued training with the woman. He shared how his lessons alternated between immortal and shapeshifter training. Immortal training, however, remained akin to torture. Xianbei explained that continuous pain could seriously impair mental clarity, making it difficult for the brain to function. Wang asked if constant pain was more dangerous than sudden injuries, to which Xianbei replied that immortals often fought while sustaining physical damage. Thus, tolerating pain was essential. It clouded logical reasoning. To adapt, Wang had to consume poison. His shapeshifter training was no easier. It began with heavy belts and vests, sandbags tied to wrists and ankles. He practiced dodging bullets, walking the tightrope, and strengthening himself with weights. Despite the intensity, there was a change midway through his training. His father left on a 10-day business trip. Later at home, Wang saw his mother and father together. His mother asked what she should do if she missed him during the trip, and his father assured her they'd video call every day. Hearing that, Wang found it amusing. They were acting as if he'd be away for years. Back in training, Wang resumed work with Xianbei. In addition to being pierced by countless weapons, the staff instructor taught him conventional weapons and martial arts. Xianbei stated confidently that Wang would quickly learn to use a firearm. Huan, the staff instructor, confirmed this, noting that despite the challenges, he was learning quickly, likely due to his shapeshifter physiology and rapid reflexes. He then trained with Professor Log, who gave him a new weapon to practice with. She acknowledged that while one could self-teach martial arts through videos, shooting required a person's senses and was much harder. Wang noticed her remark, but to him, things were different. As a hybrid with immortal-level heightened senses, the process proved surprisingly easy. 2 months passed quickly, and after completing his training, Wang returned home late at night. His father asked if he'd been to the gym, and Wang confirmed. Privately, he reflected on how strange it felt to take a break after such intense work. His body already craved more. He wondered if he'd developed a taste for pain. His father then praised his strength, amazed that someone like him, his own son, could be so capable. His mother thought that wonderful, and his father quipped that Wang must take after her. She replied that he'd inherited his intelligence from his father. Watching them, Wang thought about how close they'd always been, but wondered why he didn't have a younger sibling. Later, as he freshened up in the bathroom, he looked at himself in the mirror and wondered why he still didn't have a girlfriend. He didn't think his standards were too high. He didn't need someone as perfect as his mother. Just someone cute, mature, attractive, and a good cook would be a bonus. Shared hobbies would be nice, and someone who looked good in jeans, smart, and confident in what she wanted. Meanwhile, his mother took a phone call and told his father she was going to visit Hem's mother. His father was surprised she was heading out so late, but she explained that Hem's son was a high school senior and probably under a lot of stress. He agreed it was a tough stage. After she left, his father checked his phone. When Wang returned from the bathroom, he then checked his phone and saw a message from his trainer. The test was scheduled for the next day. It hadn't been long since his last major exam, but this one felt different. He thought about how his friends had mocked his decision not to go to university after the CSAT. They'd reacted with surprise and ridicule, but Wang had never intended to attend college. His path had been set 9 years earlier, on the day the massive Hughes Gate black hole opened. Trapped under rubble, he'd watched a man fight off endless invaders and decided he wanted to be like him. His mother would be disappointed if she knew. She'd always wanted him to have a normal life, especially since the day he'd awakened. Elsewhere, Wang's mother was searching for someone, murmuring where they could have gone. Soon she found the trainer, who asked what excuse she'd used to leave home. Wang's mother explained she'd said she was visiting a neighbor's mother. The trainer asked if she was curious about her own son. She pointed out that Wang's mother had never once asked how he was doing. Wang's mother admitted she only wanted him to do well, given his hybrid status. She hadn't asked because she was anxious. Human shapeshifter hybrids typically lack half the capabilities of pure shapeshifters. Meanwhile, Wang's father was on a call with Xian Bei. He was shocked by something and grilled him severely. His father replied with a threat, clearly upset. He asked if Xian genuinely didn't know, and then Xian revealed the truth. Wang was an irregular. The father was stunned at that word. Back with the women, the trainer observed that Wang didn't need to be exceptional. His mother only wanted him capable of defending himself against threats like mad scientist groups. She mentioned a past incident involving such a group. They'd tried combining powers from different special species to create superior beings of pure blood. What they produced were grotesque monsters with both parents' powers. The conclusion was clear. Mixing human blood with special species weakened the offspring. As she sipped her tea, the trainer told Wang's mother she'd hit the lottery with her son. His mother asked why, and the trainer replied that Wang was a once-in-a-lifetime find. Back on the call, Wang's father asked if being irregular meant his son was weaker than a quarter blood. He'd assumed Wang's strong bloodline would guarantee at least half the standard, but Xian clarified it was the opposite. Wang was a prodigy, a genius unlike any he'd ever seen. He'd even taught his father how to hide his energy. The father, still in disbelief, confirmed Xian's claim. Meanwhile, the trainer told Wang's mother that although his physical abilities were excellent, there was something more. When his mother asked what, the trainer said, his mind. He has an exceptional mind. Annoyed by the slang, Wang's mother asked her not to use such terms. The trainer rephrased, he's intelligent and talented. He's even mastered the wild blood technique. That left Wang's mother speechless. For his part, the father warned Xian that if he was lying to make Wang feel better, he'd bury him for 2 weeks. Wang's mother also vowed she'd be furious if this was a joke. Both the trainer and his mother confirmed they weren't lying. Wang was truly a genius. Hearing that, his parents smiled proudly and said in unison, just as we expected, our son. Wang woke the next morning and greeted his mother with a warm, good morning, asking where his father was. She told him he'd left early for work, then reminded him to wash up and eat. Seeing the meal she'd prepared, Wang's face lit up with joy. He wondered if it was a special day. His mother confirmed it was, the day of the civil service exam. At that realization, Wang tensed. He knew his training so far had focused more on survival than on intellectual skills. After finishing breakfast, he thanked his mother. She asked if he was ready, and he replied confidently that he'd studied so much the material even appeared in his dreams. But deep down, he remembered the disturbing dreams of his foot being sliced and his organs stabbed. His mother reminded him that his father would be disappointed if he failed, which left Wang confused. He thought that although his mother didn't want him to become a civil servant, she also didn't want him to fail. She wanted to support him, but clearly worried about his shapeshifter side. Still, Wang reassured her not to worry, reminding her of his immortal nature. In a stern tone, his mother warned, if he failed, they'd settle it in the boxing ring. Wang felt a twinge of nerves at that thought and admitted it sounded extreme. Then he found himself thinking about something he didn't want to, getting into a fight. His mother gave him a final push. If he didn't want to fight, he just had to pass the exam with determination. Wang promised he would. As he left his room, he reflected that music always sounded better when you were tense. He became more aware of how his immortal senses sharpened everything, and as he waited for the elevator, he began singing to himself. At that moment, a girl named Hyman spotted him and teased him for singing. She told him he didn't need to sing. His face was attractive enough. Embarrassed, Wang asked why she cared. Hyman boldly asked if he was going to ask her out. Wang replied that he wasn't. When she asked why not, he reminded her he'd already mentioned his ideal type several times. Teasingly, she placed her hand over his and pointed out that a girl like her, pretty, smart, and with a great body, was rare. At that moment, the elevator arrived, and Wang quickly withdrew his hand. hand, warning her not to say such things in public. He mentioned the dangers of today's world and asked if she really wanted to end up handcuffed. He challenged her claim of intelligence, adding that she lacked awareness. Even after leaving the apartment, Hyman followed him, yelling for him to wait. Wang asked her not to follow him. Curious, she asked where he was going, and he replied that he was headed to the civil service exam. Surprised, Hyman mentioned Idul. Impressed by the announcements, Wang confirmed and encouraged her to attend her classes. She reminded him she was in her final year of high school and would enter college next year. Wang congratulated her and warned her not to waste her future on alcohol once she got her ID. Hyman pointed out that he was only a year older than she was. Wang asked if she could really feel the difference. She clarified that this wasn't her point. She didn't want to go to an all-girls college. She wanted to attract guys next year. Wang advised her to focus on her studies, saying that her own mother was already worried about her. As Wang began to walk away, Hyman shouted that since they were dating, he should help her study. She called him her clever boyfriend, useful for such things. Wang replied that he didn't even know who her boyfriend was, pitying the poor guy who was ruining his life. Angry at his attitude, Hyman flipped him off. Wang noticed that her high kick hadn't changed even after she'd become a senior. Later, Wang arrived somewhere by bus. Looking at his watch, it was 7:50. He thought that might be a bit early for the 9 o'clock exam. Unsure where to go, he greeted two nearby women. One answered cheerfully, asking what had brought him there, while the other mentioned having heard about a special exam taking place that day. Just then, a man approached Wang and asked if he was a candidate. Wang said yes. The man studied him for a moment before requesting his exam documents. Feeling judged, Wang wondered why the man looked at him as if he were an imposter. After checking his papers, the man returned them and confirmed Wang's identity. "You're Wang Gik," he said, then instructed him to take the elevator to the 9th floor. Reaching the 9th floor, Wang internally questioned whether this was really the right place. A nearby woman came over and asked if he was a candidate. When Wang confirmed, she asked for his documents. After examining them, she affirmed and directed him to enter the last room. Irritated by the procedure, Wang wondered if all immortal exams were like this. Approaching the door, he noted how soundproof it seemed. He suspected that blood and chaos awaited inside, since this was the very heart of Uido. He willed his body to stay tense, considering the possibility of being attacked the moment he opened the door. Dodging a blade might be the real entry test. What he knew for sure was that the training he'd endured had been terrifying. Opening the door, he found the room filled with desks and chairs. A bald man greeted him, saying he was the first to arrive. Seeing him, Wang was surprised to notice the man was completely hairless. As the man worked, he asked for Wang's documents. Wang's thoughts drifted, recalling how anti-hair loss drugs had been developed from Whitehall materials. Cheaper versions existed but came with side effects. That meant the man was probably bald by choice as a fashion statement. The man looked up again and confirmed Wang was a candidate. Nervously, Wang handed over his documents and ID, wondering why there were so many checks. He thought his good looks should have been enough to confirm his identity. The bald man assigned him number 48 and pointed out his seat. Wang sat down, surprised by the organization. This was not the kind of test he had imagined. There were desks and chairs, nothing he'd seen during his training, but he reminded himself that anything could happen once the exam began. He suspected the bald man could suddenly attack him with a knife. He resolved to stay alert until the very end. He reassured himself that mental readiness would prevent him from being caught off guard. Soon, the room filled with other candidates, and Wang stood among them. Overwhelmed by anxiety, Wang struggled to concentrate. The teacher asked if anyone had forgotten their test pen. Wang felt something was wrong and didn't pay attention. Noticing Wang's lack of focus, the teacher grew visibly irritated. Wang raised his hand, his thoughts still muddled. At that moment, the screen revealed. Wang felt that something was wrong, but couldn't find the words to express it. Wang sat quietly in the room, looking deeply anxious. Thoughts of the exam flooded his mind. He remembered how he had suddenly begun preparing, throwing himself into endless tutoring sessions, and yet he had given his all just to pass. The start did not go well. He was the first to arrive, and he spent 50 minutes staring into space. Overwhelmed, the teacher soon announced that the exam would begin in 10 minutes and asked if anyone needed a test pen. Wang's hope collapsed. He borrowed a pen from the teacher and looked at it, realizing this was a written exam. Glancing around the room, he took in the serious testing atmosphere. He wondered what the others had studied and hesitated to ask each one. He looked at the other students and noted how all appeared above average. Some could even be idols. His eyes settled on one particularly striking student whose hands looked commercial model perfect, with a strange glow behind him. That student caught Wang's gaze, then turned away with attitude, leaving Wang confused and hoping there would be no misunderstanding. At that moment, two teachers arrived and set up partitions around Wang's desk. They began placing dividers between all the students to prevent cheating. The teacher then announced they would distribute the exam papers. Wang noted the wide spacing between desks and wondered if that was to accommodate Immortal's heightened senses. He received his exam and thought that in any other test, someone who arrived late would be disqualified. But this Immortal exam seemed remarkably relaxed. Yet he immediately dismissed that thought. Reading the questions, he grew more anguished. He wished he could run a blade course instead of answering written questions. But then, something caught his eye. One of the questions looked simpler than expected. It asked how to manage a puncture wound, and he instinctively knew the answer. Apply pressure first. He recalled his instructor's advice advice during arrow training: stop the bleeding and avoid shock. Remembering that training, he realized that running through the blade course had taught him exactly that. A small wound wouldn't be fatal for an immortal if the bleeding was controlled. The next question asked about blood loss. In shock, he found it strange that he'd never gone into shock before, but he'd already been reprimanded for that. A memory resurfaced. Once, his tutor had chased him with a blade, shouting that he hadn't gone into shock despite multiple stabbings. He'd been terrified and begged to know how much more pain he would have to endure. Back in the present, he recalled what the tutor had said. Even though he was immortal, in every other respect, he was like a normal human. That helped him choose the correct answer. He pressed on. One question asked what to do when you can't avoid a blade. The answer was to sacrifice an arm and preserve mobility. Another question concerned poison, which was easier since he already knew a great deal about it. He realized the test was measuring how much an immortal had used his body and what he'd learned from experience. Like a train running through hell and emerging with every harsh lesson intact. The practical wisdom he'd been taught now guided his answers. His training had been his study. Then he turned to the last page, where one question stood alone in bold. How do you kill an immortal? To him, the answer seemed obvious. He glanced around and wondered how much time remained. The examiner looked up at him and made a mental note. There was still 1 hour to go. He wondered whether Wang had given up. Then the examiner announced that anyone who'd finished could leave, turning in their papers. Wang rose to go. As he headed for the exit, he saw the same short-haired woman who'd checked his documents at the door, now clearly the proctor known as Nuna. She looked at him and asked if he'd read the terms printed on the back of the test paper. He confirmed that he had. Holding out a tablet, she pointed out that by agreeing to take the exam, he was bound by a contract. Any breach would result in arrest by the old authority, regardless of his immortal status. The conditions sounded daunting, but he agreed. She asked if he was a hybrid, and he admitted he was, a mix of shapeshifter and immortal. She smiled and wished him luck. He thanked her and wondered if that was her way of giving him the green light, though she wasn't exactly his type. In the next scene, an examiner sat at a desk, visibly troubled as he reviewed the tests. He read words like asphyxiation, freezing, incineration, and atomization, and thought to himself, this guy. He reflected on each method. Asphyxiation causes unconsciousness. Liquid nitrogen freezing is fatal. Severe burns would incapacitate. Atomization could halt regeneration. There was no single correct answer. So many things could kill an immortal. Most immortals lacked a safety mindset, so this question was designed to test how much candidates knew about real dangers. There was no right answer. It was purely a gauge of knowledge. The examiner thought that, being part human, Wang might not have exceptional physical skills, but his intellect was formidable. With the grading done, only the performance evaluation remained. 15 days later, Wang, thrilled, called his mother while checking his phone. He told her he'd passed the civil service exam. She responded with mild interest, but when he showed her the results he'd placed first, her tone changed. She began chopping vegetables faster, excited, and phoned someone to proudly announce that Yanu's son had topped the exam. She even mentioned quality beef in her excitement. Wang asked if he could ditch his belt for the day. Wang received a text message with his interview date. It was set to take place in the same building. Despite having asked his father about the interview, his father had only said he didn't know and advised Wang to prepare good answers, since interviews usually focus on personality. Preparing for the day, Wang dressed and thought to himself that this would be the true test. Just as he was about to leave, his mother called out words of encouragement. He acknowledged her. He left the house and, while waiting for the elevator, glanced at his reflection in the mirror. Feeling confident, he thought he looked good enough for a celebrity debut. At that moment, Hyman appeared and teased him for admiring himself. Entering the elevator together, Wang joked about how often they'd been bumping into each other lately, accusing her, half in jest, of following him. Hyman denied it, saying she was just passing by. Wang reminded her to focus on her studies, since she was in her final year, and she playfully replied she'd listen when he became her tutor again. As the banter grew lighthearted, Hyman complimented his suit, and Wang smiled and thanked her. Soon, Wang arrived at the interview site. Entering the waiting room, he saw several candidates already seated, all wearing the same determined expressions. He wondered if he should have read more about corporate interviews. Among them, he recognized the same arrogant boy from the exam hall. Mentally dubbing him the adorable little prince, Wang watched as the boy shot him a scowl and looked away. Wang vowed not to sit next to him, not out of competitiveness, but principle. When it was Wang's turn, a staff member called out his name and number. He confirmed and entered the interview room. Immediately, he noticed a pale-skinned boy with vibrant red hair, whom he mentally nicknamed Candle. Beside him sat a familiar woman, the same proctor from the test center. She greeted him, recalling their previous encounter. The interview began with the question, what motivated you to apply internally? He thought that saying, because my father told me to, would be a poor choice. Instead, he answered that he wanted to challenge himself through a difficult exam and pursue his dreams. When asked about his dream, he stated firmly that he wanted to fight for his nation and its people. The red-haired interviewer then pressed him, asking how far he would be willing to sacrifice for his allies. Wang honestly admitted that it would depend on the circumstances, choosing practicality over blind idealism. Next, the woman posed a moral dilemma. If his mother and his partner were both drowning, whom would he save first? Juan replied confidently that he would save them both, claiming he was a good swimmer. Then the red-haired boy boy posed another scenario, asking what he would do if he had only one bullet and two targets. Wang answered cleverly that he would shoot one and then throw the gun at the other. The woman was momentarily stunned by the creativity of his answer, but soon composed herself. Days later, he was back home, lying in bed, watching videos and laughing. Seeing his relaxed attitude, his mother warned him not to let his guard down just because the interview was over, and asked about his plans for the day. Wang, joking, said he had plans with himself and presented his agenda for the day: peps, play, eat, shit, and sleep. At that, his mother gave him a frosty look. Nervous, Wang sat up quickly, pretending excitement about going out, suggesting they take a walk since it had been a while. His mother agreed and asked him to step outside for a serious talk. She cautioned him to be careful, because instincts could be dangerous for shapeshifters. Wang asked what kinds of dangers, and she answered bluntly: violence, most commonly, and others. She then explained the origin of the werewolf legend, a shapeshifter who gave in to its instincts and howled at the full moon. It was a warning, and when overcome by desire, they should howl to purge it rather than act on it. Wang argued that usually it was mages and metahumans who caused trouble, not shapeshifters. His mother insisted that self-control was key. Wang remembered that after his awakening, his mother often took him on walks and realized that this was her way of teaching him self-control. She continued, advising that exercise could help burn off excess energy, but that the real challenge was managing relief, especially since Wang was genetically more prone to causing trouble. Her words overwhelmed him, but she wasn't finished. She complained about the 1-month orientation he'd have to undergo, and even suggested delaying his position to explore other options. Surprised, Wang recalled the moment he'd received the interview results. The woman on the panel had handed him a paper and congratulated him. Reading the form, Wang was shocked by the generous terms. Dormitory housing for training, a salary above 60 million, covered physical training, cultural activities, bonuses, and even military exemption after 18 months of service. He couldn't believe it. It seemed like the company was changing South Korea's entire work ecosystem. When he asked if he could show the document to his parents, a woman warned that doing so could land his mother in prison for life, saying it with a sweet smile that made the remark all the more terrifying. Wang immediately decided not to show the document, but remained astonished by the benefits. Back in the present, Wang told his mother that he intended to become the head of the Ministry of Public Administration and Security. When she questioned him, he explained that as a young man wanting to contribute to society, he needed such an ambition. Internally, he admitted that although the benefits were tempting, he really wanted to work for a company that recognized his value. His mother mocked his lofty words as nonsense, but he playfully credited his talents to her and his father, and his good looks made her smile. She said she was happy that he was her son, despite his teasing. If there were other shapeshifter children like him, she would still feel the same way. She reassured him that he was fine. In his thoughts, he reflected on his identity. Being mixed blood had its advantages. Shapeshifters struggled with instincts, immortals with heightened senses, but he could control himself. His instincts were in check, and his sensitivity easy to dampen. Confident, he knew he would do well, no matter where he was or who he was with. In the final scene, Wang stood at a bus stop, his luggage by his side, ready to begin the next chapter of his journey. As the next scene began, he sat on the bus, looking out the window. He watched people drenched in sweat under the scorching sun, realizing that summer had truly arrived. Reflecting inwardly, he noted that although he couldn't distinguish them at the testing center, now on the bus, it was clear who was pure blood and who was not. Their distinct appearances and the unique atmosphere made it obvious, and his immortal sharp senses and intuition confirmed it. Glancing to his side, he noticed the same boy who had sat next to him before. Once again, they sat side by side, watching others chatting nearby. Wang thought to himself how quickly people had made new friends. He remembered his father's words, encouraging him to make friends and not judge based on first impressions. Some people who leave a bad initial impression turn out to be good, and vice versa. He had responded with understanding at the time, and his father, gently ruffling his hair, said he had grown so much. Wang replied proudly that he was now taller than his father. To that, his father warned him not to act like a man-child and asked if he was sleeping well. Wang assured him he was fine, while his father admitted having trouble sleeping at Wang's age. Curious, Wang asked what it was like for his father, and he shared that, though everything else was fine, he could hear every sound from the neighbor. Wang asked how he dealt with it, wanting to know how immortals overcame their sensitivity. His father had tried everything: earplugs, sleep masks, microfiber blankets, but nothing helped. Eventually, he bought a 4-story building and made a soundproof room in its center. Wang was impressed by his father's efficiency and laughed. His father advised him to keep handling insomnia like an adult, reminding him that society would eventually teach him to control his senses, or jokingly said he could spend 3 years training in the mountains. Considering this, Wang thought controlling his senses must be difficult, but for him, metamorphosis training had helped, and controlling his senses seemed similar to flexing the muscles in his ears or back. He silently thanked his mother for that. Exhausted, his father remarked that everyone is sensitive in some way, and Wang should find a method that worked for him. Wang asked for solutions, but his father refused, saying it wouldn't be any fun that way. When Wang pressed, his father scolded him, telling him not to make life too easy and to have a little shame. Back in the present, Wang Wang addressed the same arrogant boy, reminding him that they had met 3 times already, at the testing center, at the interview, and now. The boy didn't respond immediately, and when he finally did, he asked if Wang knew him. Wang was surprised. When he caught the boy's eye twice before, and even received hostile looks both times, he now pretended it was their first meeting. Frustrated, Wang thought to himself that the boy must have a terrible memory, and was, frankly, a lousy guy. Turning around, he spotted a blonde girl behind him. She didn't appear to be pureblood, but he greeted her anyway. The girl immediately asked if he was mixed blood, and Wang confirmed, saying it should be obvious. She quickly deduced that his father must be the immortal, citing his muted senses. She accused him of taking the opportunity only for the generous conditions, assuming he didn't even know where they were headed. Surprised inwardly, Wang defended himself, saying he accepted the job with big dreams about the company. She dismissed him as an immature child. Feeling annoyed, Wang thought that here was another rude person who fancied herself Sherlock Holmes. He asked what she was, and she insulted his lack of observational skills. She explained that immortals are highly sensitive, that's why no one sits by the windowsill. The sunlight streaming through the curtains is irritating, and even conversation is an effort. She could tell who was mixed simply by watching who was eating and talking. She told him to shut up, calling him a senseless optical, and her harsh words silenced everyone. All agreed that they ought to remain quiet. Wang was shocked and furious, thinking he would like to punch her and ignore all his parents' advice, but he also recognized that she was, technically, right. His father had once been nicknamed Chief of Sensitivity while dating. If it had been so hard for his father, even after adjusting, then these kids must be suffering even more. Still, he believed everyone could be a little more respectful. With that, the bus fell as silent as a funeral. Even opening a bag of chips now could make him a mortal enemy. Luckily, Wang had eaten a big breakfast, but at that moment his stomach began to cramp and a fart threatened to escape. Before it did, his inner voice, personifying the gas, greeted him and asked permission to go forth into the world. Juan cursed the timing, blaming the soy milk he'd drunk at 2 in the morning, recalling the girl's rude comments. He granted permission to the gas, deciding to aim it directly at her. A silent but potent fart slipped out, and the horrid smell hit the girl first, then gradually spread through the bus. The odor was so foul that people began to gag and rushed to open the windows. The girl, furious, accused him of being uncivilized, but Wang, feeling a strange satisfaction, reflected that his revenge had been successful, albeit unintentional. A few hours later, the bus finally reached its destination. Disembarking, Wang looked around in confusion. It seemed they were in the middle of nowhere. He wondered if they had rented a nearby condominium. Suddenly, a boy called to him, asking what he'd had for breakfast. Another chimed in, asking if he was constipated. Wang deduced they must be the mixed bloods who'd been sitting at the back. He explained it was just a physiological issue. A second boy introduced himself as Kim Johan, 21 years old, and the first said his name was Bang, 23. Wang introduced himself as Wang, 20 years old, joking that Bang should have been responsible for the fart since his name sounded like an explosion. Bang laughed, asking if Wang was serious. Johan pointed out that age wouldn't matter once they entered, but Wang insisted it was still a company orientation and that they should treat each other formally. Bang sneered, asking if Wang had come in complete ignorance. As they walked, Wang was surprised to realize they were actually at a training camp. The instructor shouted for everyone to form 5 lines, and all the students began to run. Observing them, Wang estimated there were about 100 people and felt disappointed to see so many out of shape, already winded from the short run. The instructor announced that over the next month, everyone must give their all to improve. He was already disappointed in their performance and questioned what they could achieve in such weakness. He boasted that it hadn't been like this at their age, then ordered everyone to turn around and look at the 3 trees in front of them. The first 15 to arrive would be selected. Wang was shocked to see the same bald instructor from the testing center there, flanked by the red-haired boy and the sharp-tongued girl. When the run began again, Wang noticed that Gli and Yan were sprinting at full speed, but he felt different. Despite everything, he felt calm and at peace, perhaps because he'd already endured so much. He calculated that he could probably hop on 1 foot and still make it halfway. He adjusted his pace and now aimed to secure the 14th spot, fully embracing this orientation that had turned into a real training camp. In a flashback, Wang's mother had warned him never to let anyone discover he was a shapeshifter. Curious and defiant, Wang had asked what would happen if he were found out. She had simply called it a problem. Unsatisfied, Wang had pressed for a better reason, and she sighed, explaining the harsh truth. Humans saw shapeshifters as ticking time bombs, dangerous, unpredictable, potential criminals, uncontrolled beings who howled naked at the moon. To them, shapeshifters were dangerous people. Back in the present, Wang silently vowed to keep his identity secret. He finished the race in 14th place while everyone else lay exhausted. He remained unaffected, but then the instructor ordered everyone to go home, saying that even the basics were wrong.